A warm welcome to our virtual update today. And I would like to start with some organizational points. So during the presentation, everybody will be muted. And if you have questions or any kind of problems, please feel free to use the Q&A mode, the Q&A section. And we will answer the questions after the presentation, or if the time is too limited to answer all questions, we will answer the rest of the questions with email. This session will be recorded, and later on it will be available on the YouTube channel of HWI or also in the mediathek of the homepage. And if you want, you can also request the presentation as a PDF file. Okay, yeah, then let's start with the topic of today. Again, welcome to everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Sebastian Franken, and I am part of the University of Applied Science in Rheinbach, which is next to Bonn. And the main focus of my research work is molecular drug research with a particular emphasis on phytopharmaceuticals and their mechanisms of action. Today, it's a great pleasure for me to talk to you about a topic that sits exactly at the intersection of biology, technology, and pharmaceutical innovation. So we're going to explore together how nanoformulated herbal extracts can unlock the untapped potential of phytopharmaceuticals, and why this field is becoming increasingly relevant for modern pharmaceutical R&D. So maybe let's begin with a simple question. Why should we even consider plant extract-based medicines in pharmaceutical development? I think there are several quite compelling reasons. First, plants offer extraordinary chemical diversity. Let me take my laser pointer. And because evolution, of course, has shaped bioactive scaffolds that synthetic chemistry can rarely reproduce efficiently. Second, we have existing human exposure, because for centuries of traditional use of pharmaceuticals, we have a degree of, let's say, early safety de-risking that is really unique if you compare it to classical NCEs. Third, regulatory agencies in the EU and US today provide a quite clear and structural pathway when it comes to botanical drug development. And fourth, patient acceptance of phytopharmaceuticals, herbal drugs, is very high. So people, they trust natural origin medicines, but on the other hand, they expect pharmaceutical grade performance. And finally, many botanical actives show favorable benefit risk profiles, especially in chronic and long-term use indications. So I would say it's a real good opportunity if we can overcome historical limitations. And historically, these limitations, they really were substantial, because a lot of botanical compounds typically suffer from poor solubility, instability. They are rapidly metabolized, and because of this, they have a quite low bioavailability. and that, of course, caused problems. So achieving pharmaceutical grade consistency from complex plant matrices was for a long time quite difficult. In addition, we also lacked delivery technologies capable of controlled or even targeted uptake. And we also have to say that the supplement market unfortunately shaped a little bit the perception that botanicals are somewhat non-pharmaceutical. And for long years, but this has been overcome in the meantime, but in earlier times, the regulatory framework were also less defined than it is today. But let's have a closer look on the challenges in developing phytopharmaceuticals from herbal extracts. So as I said already, plant-derived actives, they are often highly hydrophobic, they are rapidly metabolized, poorly absorbed, and chemically unstable. And for these problems, nanoformulations provide direct solutions. So on the one hand, nanoemulsions, for example, micelles, liposomes, they increase solubility. And dissolution is enhanced due to the increased surface area. Lipid-based nanocarriers enable things like lymphatic uptake, and the mucoadhesive nanoparticles that we know prolong GI resonance times. And by these mechanisms, we can reach sustained plasma concentrations. And regarding the instability, the encapsulation into nanocarriers can protect sensitive compounds against oxidation, pH, light, and thereby improving their shelf life and in vivo stability. In addition, we also had problems with uncontrolled distribution, which reduces the efficacy of the substances. And we had very fast elimination times, which shortens the therapeutic window. And also, of course, we have different kinds of biological barriers that hinder the delivery of interesting substances. And also for this, nanoformulations have some solutions. For example, functionalized nanoparticles or nanocarriers enable tissue targeting. We can also use the EPR effect because it allows passive targeting of nanoparticles into tumor tissue, for example, and also in inflamed tissues. And intracellular uptake can also be increased by endocytosis of these nanocarriers. Then we know polymeric nanoparticles, for example, that allows sustained or triggered release. And these points might allow reduced dosing frequencies, which on the other hand improves the compliance of patients. And even the transport upon biological barriers can be improved by nanoformulations. So I would say regarding phytopharmaceuticals, nanoformulations, they are some kind of pharmaceutical enabling technology. Of course, we know different kinds of nanoparticles. On the one hand, we have polymeric nanoparticles, we have inorganics, we have lipid-based nanoparticles, and they all have, of course, their own advantages and disadvantages. Polymeric nanoparticles, for example, can be very precisely controlled regarding their particle characteristics. And it is quite easy to modify their surface, for example, for targeted delivery. On the other hand, some of these polymeric particles tend to aggregate, and they also show sometimes some toxicity. Then we have this inorganic particles that have quite unique electrical, magnetic, and also optical properties, which make them suitable, for example, for theranostic applications. But again, also these particles show some kind of toxicities, and they have also solubility limitations. And then definitely since COVID, we know the lipid-based nanocarriers, which have the advantage that the formulation is quite simple and they are highly bioavailable, and they have a high flexibility when it comes to the payload. Disadvantages in lipid-based nanocarriers are often that the encapsulation efficiency is quite low, but I would say technique has become better and better in this, so maybe this is not a big disadvantage any longer. Which delivery approach to choose, of course, very much depends on the kind of what we want to formulate. The categories especially differ in their drug loading capacity, what is shown here, and in the grade of protection they provide for the payload. For example, we have this very special kind of nanocrystals where resveratrol would be an example. Resveratrol is a natural polyphenol that is common in grapes and peanuts, for example. And this can be formulated into such nanocrystals, which, for example, can serve as some kind of depot. And of course, we also know liposome-based and protein-based formulations of herbal ingredients. This table here gives a short overview about some of the challenges seen with different natural compounds and how formulations already have improved properties like stability, absorption, and also bioavailability. Curcumin, for example, is a very prominent example. It holds very big promise regarding mode of action, but it is highly insoluble and very difficult to deliver. And in that case, nanoemulsions and liposomes can really increase the bioavailability of this molecule by a factor of 10 to 50 or even more. But let's have a look on another example, which is a quite old example, but it's a good one, I would say. It is Abraxane. Abraxane is an albumin, so protein-bound form of paclitaxel, which is seen here, which was originally extracted from the bark and the needles of the Pacific yew. And this tree was nearly extinguished because of this. And another name of paclitaxel is Taxol, under which it has been on the market as a successful cancer drug since the early 90s. And Abraxane is maybe one of the strongest demonstrations of how good or how a good delivery strategy can transform a drug. By binding paclitaxel to albumin nanoparticles, Abraxane achieved some very great advantages when it is compared to Taxol. For example, it was possible to eliminate chemophore from the formulation, which led to much fewer hypersensitivity reactions in patients. Then also, there was no need any longer for pre-medication of the patients with steroids and or antihistamine. Because we had a higher effective dose with Abraxane, we could use shorter infusion times. What was also shown is that Abraxane had the better efficacy in breast and pancreatic cancer, for example, and that is because it has improved PK and a better tumor penetration because of the albumin transport. And this is a perfect example of formulation-driven pharmacological innovation, especially as we look at the sales in comparison to its precursor Taxol, which is shown in dark gray here. Abraxane was introduced in 2005 in the US and more or less displaced Taxol from the market within a few years. Of course, this is an example of an isolated compound from a plant, but formulation is also possible, of course, with herbal extracts. And I want to share another example of such an herbal extract, which comes from the food supplement sector, and that is ginkgo biloba. So ginkgo is used to treat conditions like dementia, for example, Alzheimer's disease symptoms, also intermittent claudication and tinnitus. But conventional ginkgo extracts also have some limitations. It is really poorly soluble. There's a quite low oral bioavailability, and it is also quite unstable during digestions. And liposomes really can solve some of these problems because they protect the active compounds, which are mainly flavonoids and terpene lactones, from degradation. And the phospholipid bilayer mimic a little bit cell membranes, and this leads to an improved intestinal absorption. And liposome also enable a controlled and sustained release, and reduces things like first pass metabolism. And this circumstance is reflected in the plasma curves of some important components of ginkgo extracts, which we can see on this slide. So mainly here are shown terpene lactones like ginkgolide B or bilobalide, and the administration of ginkgosome, which is a liposomal formulation of ginkgo biloba, leads to increased and prolonged plasma levels for some of these terpene lactones, especially ginkgolide B, when compared to a standard ginkgo extract. So definitely we have here a nice example of a formulation of a herbal extract that leads to a sustained release and to prolonged and increased plasma levels for the active ingredients of this extract. Mechanistically, the efficacy improves because the dissolution increases, the absorption increases, we have prolonged circulation time, and the delivery becomes I would say controlled, and of course it could also be targeted if we have targeted nanoparticles that we use. So together I would say nanoformulation harbors the property to convert the promising biological activity that we have in a lot of herbal extracts into reliable therapeutic exposure. And the field, this is what we see, the field is evolving rapidly. So nowadays we see green nanotechnology with biodegradable carriers. We have hybrid nanobiopolymers like stealth liposomes, and also smart systems with stimuli responsive release. And all these innovations, they will allow even finer control of exposure and targeting of the active ingredients of herbal extracts. Of course, one of the main concerns or common concerns in developing new products is the manufacturing. And but we can say that the techniques that underlie the production of nanoformulations, like high pressure homogenization, microfluidization, spray drying, nanoprecipitation, they are already established, and GMP scalability has also been demonstrated for these techniques. So it means that the nanoformulation of botanicals are not experimental, they are industrially feasible today. So what are the conditions for establishing nanoformulated phytopharmaceuticals? So I would say we are at a moment of a perfect alignment between different important factors. So on the one hand, I said that I try to explain that nanotechnology, of course, has matured and is GMP scalable. We have analytical fingerprinting techniques nowadays of our extracts that is so precise and reproducible that we can really follow the active ingredients during the formulation process. And what is also very important, of course, that patients really, they seek for natural origin therapies, but they want, of course, pharmaceutical standards. And I think we can also say that pharma pipelines nowadays require some kind of diversification beyond the classical small molecules. And as I already said, the regulatory clarity has really improved dramatically during the last years regarding the botanical framework. So taken together, the scientific, technological, and also the market conditions, they are aligned right now. So they are where we need them. And the market for herbal medicines, as we can see it here, is predicted to experience a strong global growth in the coming years. So nanoformulation can, in this field, can create new opportunities for intellectual property just by formulating old or well-known extracts into a new kind of pharmaceutical drug. It has also the opportunity for product differentiation, for line extensions, for example, and it somehow bridges natural origin compounds with modern pharmaceutical standards. And this combination is rare and it's valuable, I would say. What does this mean strategically? So what do nanoformulated botanicals offer? On the one hand, we can have a quite fast early development due to the known safety that we have from the traditional use. Because of the nanoformulation, we have improved PK that makes known actives, promising actives, clinically relevant, and we can differentiate our products from generics and also supplements if we want, because of the robust formulation IP that we can produce via nanoformulation. And of course, we have the high patient acceptance. So I would say it is some kind of an innovation without starting from zero. And what is also often important is in which pipeline does it fit. So for me, what is most interesting is maybe that these nanoformulated botanicals align especially well with therapeutic areas where long-term safety is critical. So, for example, in chronic low-grade inflammation, in neuroprotection, cognitive health, in metabolic modulation, pre-diabetes weight management is a very important point. Then GI conditions, and also dermatology and barrier production. And what I also find especially interesting is the field of all these resilience-related syndromes that grow more and more. And importantly, these nanoformulations also support, as I already said, line extensions of already existing lines, and if it is wanted, also in OTC to RX pathway for some of our products. So taken together, this provides a quite flexible development and life cycle strategy. So let me close with 3 simple messages. First, nature provides extraordinary chemical diversity that we cannot mimic with normal chemically small molecules. Second, nanoformulation solves some, I would not say all, but some of the historic challenges that prevented botanicals from becoming mainstream pharmaceuticals. And third, technology, regulation, and also the market demand, so what the patients want, are aligned nowadays to turn natural diversity into reliable medicines. Okay, I would really be delighted to start a discussion about this topic and maybe possible projects in the future. If you are interested, don't hesitate to contact me or the experts from HWI.